Welcome to Pimpy's Investment Chat, where we keep investment talk simple. And here's your host, Pimpy.
What is going on out there, peeps? All right, let's get back to the Vietnam Dong and the Zim Dollars, shall we? All right, so what do we have here? An outlaw in his beer. Never mind. Most of you probably don't even know what song that is. U.S. Treasury continues not to list Vietnam as currency manipulators. In its latest semi-annual report on the macroeconomic and foreign exchange policies of major trading partners of the U.S., the State Bank of Vietnam said on November the 8th. So before, they were always manipulating their currencies, and then Trump went in there and smacked them around a little bit. And but as soon as Trump was out of office, they, slipped back just a little bit. They manipulate their numbers like they're not supposed to, and Biden isn't going to enforce it. So what's the point of having the penalties there if you're not going to enforce them? The report continued to base on three criteria to make assessments, namely trade surplus with the U.S., current account surplus, and persistent and one-sided intervention in the foreign currency markets. The U.S. Treasury included 6 economies in the monitoring list of major trading partners, namely China, Germany, Malaysia, Singapore, Taiwan. Look how they put the China there next to the Taiwan so they don't get in trouble. And Vietnam. Vietnam met 2 of the 3 criterias, which are the bilateral goods and service surplus with the U.S. over the 4 quarters through June 23rd, exceeding the threshold. So this is normal for them. So there's 3 criteria, like they say. Vietnam is really good at straddling the fence. So they'll violate 2 of the 3. As long as you don't do 3, then you should be okay. When Trump got in there, he picked up on this. And then he said, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. I see what you're doing. And told them they had to be out of all criteria. So again, it really just depends on who it is that is the leader at the time, whether or not you're going to get them to do anything to enforce the laws that we have out there. But for the most part, you can see right here, Vietnam is not on the currency manipulator list. That's a good thing. Let's get over here to the Zim Dollars. Now, I thought this article was interesting. Zimbabwe says it lost in excess of $150 billion to sanctions. You see what sanctions do to countries? They end up punishing the citizens, not the politicians. The politicians continue to stay corrupt. Zimbabwe's vice president on Wednesday said the country has lost more than $150 billion due to sanctions imposed by the European Union, countries such as the United States, following a report of election rigging and human rights abuse in the early 2000s. Speaking of protesters rallying against the sanctions, Vice President said that the measures were also hurting the entire Southern Africa region. Well, if you're a country out there that has a lot of resources that countries like America and Europe want, they're going to find a way to slap you under sanctions. They want your resources. They rig elections. They put in puppet politicians that are criminals who would take large payouts to allow the United States and these other countries to do what they want to do within your country. He called the sanctions an albatross around Zimbabwe's neck, as they include financial restrictions that isolate Zimbabwe from the global access to capital. So the same issue, but on a lighter scale, Zimbabwe is going through the same thing that Iraq has. But as you can see, little by little, the sanctions are being moved from Iraq. But what you'll notice about all these poor currencies that we talk about investing into, they're under sanctions. That's what you're going to notice. So what happens when you remove the sanctions? Yeah, they're going to go up in value. The problem with Zimbabwe is they don't have an internationally recognized currency. Now, I showed you a copy of the bill that they're currently using, but that's just locally. So the people over there in Zimbabwe, rightfully so, are pissed off that the sanctions are costing them billions and billions of dollars that can go to their people to help do good. Medicine, hospitals, education, schools, stuff like that. So I dug into this just a little farther. Let's take a look at the notes. So I went to go find out, is Zimbabwe under sanctions? Yes, the Zimbabwe dollar, commonly referred to as the Zim Dollar, has been subject to sanctions imposed by various countries and international organizations. These sanctions have had a significant impact on the currency and the overall economy of Zimbabwe. Sanctions are measures taken by one or more countries or international organizations to restrict or prohibit certain economic activities with another country. They are often used as a tool for political leverage or to address concerns related to human rights violations, corruption, and other issues. Then why isn't the United States put under sanctions? Makes you wonder, huh? So it's not just that they had concerns about your human rights or corruptions or anything like that. You also have to be a badass. Your country has to be able to beat everybody else up. The sanctions on the Zim dollar were first introduced in 2002 by the United States under the Zimbabwe Democracy and Economic Recovery Act. This act prohibited the United States financial institutions from extending loans or credits to Zimbabwe's government and restricted access to international financial institutions such as the IMF and the World Bank. The European Union also implemented similar measures, including an arms embargo and travel bans on certain individuals. These sanctions had severe impact on Zimbabwe's economy, including its currency. The Zim dollar experienced hyperinflation during this period, reaching astronomical levels. In response to the economic crisis, the government introduced a series of currency reforms, including demonetizing the Zim dollar in 2009 and adopting the multi-currency system, where foreign currencies such as the US dollar and South African rand become legal tender. So you know that old saying, supply and demand. If your currency is being used in other countries, well, then you're going to have a stronger dollar. But it's more like if you force your currency into other countries, you're going to have a stronger dollar. However, in 2019, the government introduced the Zim dollar as a sole legal tender in an attempt to regain control over monetary policy. This move was accompanied by a series of economic reforms aimed at stabilizing the currency and reviving the economy. Nonetheless, the Zim dollar has continued to face challenges due to various factors, including ongoing sanctions. So the Venezuela Bolivar is the same. They're under sanctions. And so is El Salvador's money. It's something for you to think about. Because what happens to these currencies if the sanctions are lifted? Will the currency go up? I'll have to dig into that a little bit more and look at the history and then get back to you. Secondly, the sanctions have contributed to a lack of investors' confidence in Zimbabwe. The perception of political instability and economic uncertainty has deterred foreign direct investors, which is crucial for economic growth and stability, which is what Iraq needs. And now that they've allowed them to deal with foreign currency exchanges, the Iraqi dinar will start to increase in value, and you will see a lot stronger economy coming up. Without significant foreign investment, the country has struggled to attract the capital needed to stimulate economic activity and create jobs. Thirdly, the sanctions have affected trade relations between Zimbabwe and other countries. While not directly targeting the Zim dollar, trade restrictions and bans on certain goods have disrupted commerce and hindered the country's ability to export or produce. This has further strained the economy and put pressure on the currency. It is important to note that there has been efforts to lift or ease sanctions on Zimbabwe in recent years. The government has engaged in dialogue with various international actors, including the US and EU, in the attempt to improve relations and other concerns. Additionally, there have been calls for some African countries for the removal of sanctions, arguing that they impeded Zimbabwe's ability to recover and develop. That's the whole purpose of it. If your country is rich with resources and you don't allow American companies to go in there and suck you guys dry, they will make up every excuse in the world to put you under sanctions. That's why countries around the world are tired of being bullied. That's why they're looking for an alternative to the SWIFT system. So in conclusion, yes, the Zim dollar has been under sanctions imposed by various countries and international organizations. These sanctions have had a significant impact on the currency and the overall economy in Zimbabwe, contributing to hyperinflation, limited access to external funding, lack of investors' confidence, and disruptions in trade relations. So if these countries can get out from under these sanctions and allow these countries to start dealing internationally, they will be able to produce, their economies get stronger, and when you have a strong economy, it usually will strengthen your currency as well. Anyways, you guys let me know what you think. I'll look forward to your comments, and I'll get back at you later. I'm out.